had the pleasure of interning with JDRF this past semester. I was an undergraduate at Texas A&M and recently just graduated in May. Whoop, I see an Aggie on here. But yeah, so I have kind of been the orchestrator slash facilitator slash everything in between, as well as Tanya of this off to college event, little meeting per se, to get y'all prepared to go off to college. I know whenever I was a wee freshman, I wish I would have had something like this to just help me get through the next 4 years of my life. But yeah, so to start off, I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Tanya to go ahead and tell y'all a little bit more about JDRF if y'all don't already know. So Tanya, if you want to take it away.
Sure. Welcome, everybody. I'm very excited you're here. JDRF is very proud to put this on. We've tried to do this almost every year, and it's just such an important transition for our young our children to transition off into college where everything is changing. So this is really important, and I'm so glad that you guys are here. I wanted to also, we'll highlight the actual speakers here soon, but I wanted to thank some people before we get started. So one of the sponsors of tonight's events is Niagara Cares. Let's see if I can do this right. There you go, right there. Yes. So we're very appreciative to Niagara Cares for helping fund this event. We're also very appreciative to Dr. Mora and Dana Roseman for being here tonight as our special speakers. And a huge shout out to Cameron. She's done a ton of work on this and could not be more excited about it coming to fruition and proud to just see how great she's done with all this. This is being recorded. So if someone has not been able to join us, quite a few people called in and said that they were not able to make it due to schedules. So we are going to be sharing this just so you all know. And I think that's about it. So I'll hand it off to Dana to introduce herself.
Hi, good evening. It's great to see everybody. My name is Dana Roseman, and I work with a practice called Integrated Diabetes Services. It's a fully telehealth diabetes education practice. I'm the director of technology and applied research, and I've done this program before with Dr. Mora, and I always love to talk to the upcoming freshmen, and this will be a fun night.
And Dr. Mora.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Pablo Mora. I am currently in private practice in the North Texas Diabetes Center, which is located in Plano. I'm also a clinical professor at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center, where I teach pump and sensors technology for the fellowship program for endocrinologists. And Dana and I have been working on this for off and on in many ways for over 10 years with the support of JDRF and everybody else. So I'm very excited to be here. And I hope that you will gain a lot of insight in both from your questions and our perspective as well.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and spotlight Dr. Mora and Dana, and Cameron, you take it away.
Awesome, thanks Tanya. So just to go ahead and highlight what's going to happen tonight. So Dr. Mora and Dana are going to be speaking about a few topics that they deem are absolutely necessary to know before you go off to college, which, by the way, is such an exciting time. Like I said, just recently graduated, and while I don't have diabetes, I can't imagine how hard it's going to be for you all, but also very rewarding. College is the best 4 years of your life, and I can absolutely say that they were the best 4 years of mine. So they're just gonna talk about a few different things, and then y'all submitted a few questions for them to answer as well. So we'll be getting to those after they hit on the need to know topics. But if you think of any question at all, feel free to just shoot it in the chat. I'm gonna be monitoring the chat, and then once we're done with all of the pre-questions and all of the topics that they wanna talk about, I'll go ahead and read those off for you all. So no need to unmute yourself or anything, just take in all the information. But yeah, if y'all want to take it away.
Well, let's get started, Dana. So one of the things that I think we want to emphasize to you guys is that preparation for college doesn't start the week before you actually move into your dorm. This is actually a process that it takes probably 2 years, where you are a junior in high school, where you start getting off to the whole idea that you're going to start talking to your medical care providers, your educators on your own, not without your mom, not without your dad. You need to know pharmacy numbers. You need to know insurance card information. What the heck is a deductible? Where do you get your stuff? And because you're going to turn around and then say, where, mom, where do I get my stuff? And guess what? First of all, we encourage you not to do that, but this is not going to happen. So I want to make sure that you guys understand that this is a process, but it's a process that you also need to find someone that you like, that you trust. And you might not go around and then come to see me or Dana or my educator that I work with now, and you don't have to like us. And if you don't like us, then you still have time to shop around and find someone, because this is a relationship you're going to have, and we're going to be helping you almost like a lifeline, if you will, and it's going to make your parents and yourself far more comfortable if you find yourself that you can talk to us, you can trust us. I think that relationship takes a while, and it's not a one visit. And Dana and I mean, we struggle to make a connection. And would you agree, Dana, that that's one of the things that is the most difficult to accomplish, especially when it's a short time period?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, I completely agree, of course, that starting to prepare for college really takes a couple of years before you actually do your admission process with the next step. And really talking about family roles and where that fits in the family, how you're comfortable with blood sugar management, who's responsible for what, and, really starting to own certain responsibilities, I think is so key in preparation to go to college, no matter how far or how close you're going from your parents. And, high school really is that warm up for college. And I think taking advantage of having someone down the hallway that can help with low blood sugars or can help with grocery shopping is absolutely kind of the first step, but then using that as kind of a warm up to go to college.
So Cameron, what do you think where should we start? What topic does it come up in your hot top list for us to cover?
Awesome, perfect. So why don't we start off with some special scenarios, and if you're having like a bad day, how we go about managing that, and just maybe educating others about type 1 diabetes and how to talk about that with others. I know that's a lot, but like all wrapped up in one.
I might jump in. Hopefully, as you're looking at colleges, something called the College Diabetes Network is something that everybody has on their radar. Most large universities have a College Diabetes Network, and if not, I think it's always a great idea to start your own chapter. It's a national organization. They have a ton of resources for college kids, and that's a great way to start and develop your support system from home. And there's a whole litany of other organizations I think we'll talk about in a second in terms of getting support. But I think a lot of times the first step that people start to think about when they're preparing for college is, who am I going to live with? What's who's my roommate? And that's a really good place to start. I think a lot of kids find their roommate on social media, through Facebook groups from the university. And, depending on your comfort level, bringing up diabetes, almost not right away, but within the first couple of conversations, and kind of get a feel for how comfortable that person might be with having someone living with them with diabetes. Not that you need help, but that you're comfortable talking to them about that, and seeing if that can extend to be a support system.
And for a lot of people that are going to be facing diabetes as the first time when they're your roommates, for them it's going to be shocking also. So they need to be prepared. So, don't expect that they have any idea what the heck is type 1 diabetes versus type 2.
Right.
Why would you have to do injections every time you eat? Why can your blood sugar go down? So there's a lot of conversations that needs to start it. And you need to kind of be upfront and say, hey, if you're going to be my roommate, I'm going to need you to know certain things because I may need you. Hopefully you won't, but if my blood sugar goes low, then this is what you need to do. Don't start screaming and running down the hall. Try to help me, or get the hall monitor, or get someone. So I think that don't assume that everybody knows that you have type 1 diabetes. And so it is very difficult, but it's very important. So that's one of our first questions that we ask. Do you know who's your roommate? Where are you going to stay? For people that are returning to college after freshman, are you moving to an apartment? Who are you going to live with? Who's going to cook? Where are you going to cook? Where are you going to shop? And so all of those little tiny little things, believe it or not, everybody has to be on the same page.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, talking to your roommate about, okay, we may not share a refrigerator. I may have my own refrigerator because number one, I have to store insulin in it. But number two, I may need some, you know, easy snacks that I can have, you know, maybe the dining hall is closed and I need to eat dinner, you know, and talking through where I keep my supplies for low blood sugars, you know, keep your hands off my Skittles, that kind of conversation definitely needs to happen. And I think that's important to talk about as you're figuring out, you know, who's bringing, you know, everything or matching, you know, bedding, that kind of thing.
Sure. So I think that part, first of all, Cameron, to know what is the scenario is going to be in terms of where are you going to live and what are you going to do, it's very important. The other question I ask all the time, and a lot of people think that it's an annoying question, but is how many morning classes are you going to have? How far are you going to have to walk? Just prepare for getting lost in the first week or two to every single class and be late and don't have a time to eat and things like that. So it sounds like nothing to do with diabetes, but it does 100%. And those questions, it's our job to ask them, even though they might seem annoying and you might not just like, why he's asking this question. So be prepared to give us some information. Yes, I know my roommate, I know this and this and that. When do I move? And classes and schedules.
And talking about classes and schedules, you know, most everyone who has diabetes most people do have a 504 plan, and that 504 plan, I think it's important to understand, does extend to college. There is an office that can help you at any university that will help with classes schedule, will help with just making sure whatever accommodations you've had in high school will extend to college. And so I think that's also, you know, along with College Diabetes Network, getting in touch with that department at your university is, I also think, an early stage or an early step to planning.
Right, but don't expect that we're going to have all the forms in our office.
Right.
This is your homework, okay? So I have no idea where the heck your college is. I have no idea what the office looks like. I have no idea what the form looked like. I can help you with the form, but that's your homework. So usually one of the first things that we do first time is that have you to contact the office of, it's either it's called special needs or disability services or whatever. And then bring us the form. I always ask you, just write how you want it, and then I sign off on it, because you may know which snacks you like. I mean, you may hate orange juice, and I put orange juice, and then you want apple juice. So it has to be, it sounds very funny, but it's very true. And so help us out, but it's your homework. It's not my homework to find those forms, not Dana's homework. And we don't have a way to know. I mean, imagine the amount of many colleges that we will deal with.
Right.
So that's one special scenario, which is kind of housing. So the other scenario that we had in mind is what happens outside normal life, which is school and things like that. So one scenario that I want to make sure that we cover at some point is the issue about what to do when you run into any issues with diabetes. So I don't know Dana, do you want to kind of start off of the possible?
Yeah. So, another thing, when you go to freshman orientation and you're actually on campus, hopefully this summer or soon, one of the pieces of homework is to find a 24-hour pharmacy. There's always shouldn't say always, it depends how small of a college town you're going to, but most of the time there is, within driver's distance or within an Uber trip, a 24-hour pharmacy. And that's key because emergencies happen. Ideally, we would both like you to have long-acting insulin and, supplies you need if a pump fails, something like that. But in case of emergency, it's always helpful to have a prescription at a 24-hour pharmacy, something that you can get access to at any time of the day in case you run out of insulin. That's usually a number one, get the phone number, put it in your contact information. A starting point. I always like to do that. The other thing is, during freshman orientation, I always suggest to meet with the dining hall dietitian. There's always a dietitian on staff at any university, wherever you're getting your food. If it's something that, say you have special needs, special allergies, or even you want access to the carbohydrate counting at the dining hall, that is something readily available at most universities. And the dietitian's job there is to help you with that. And so again, find out who that person is. It shouldn't be hard just to do a search on staff, get that contact information. Most of them are beyond happy to talk with you and get some sort of plan organized.
Yeah, one thing that I get asked all the time, can you recommend a doctor in the town of this and that? And then I usually say the same thing. With today's way that we handle diabetes, we can do a lot of remote things. Right. But I need you to know, first of all, which hospital are you supposed to go? And also the student health clinic. What are the hours? What time do they open? Because you might never need them, but if you need them, then you need to know where they're in building A or building B. And then you may not want to walk that way because you just, run into a nail and then you have a hole in your foot and then you cannot walk that far. Sounds funny, but it's not. Right. And you will find out that this is something that you just need to know. And those things need to happen way before you actually need them. So it's one of those things that is almost like your car insurance. You need to know where it is in the car, who you're going to call, and then what are you going to ask the other driver to give you information. Same thing here. We're going to know, if you call us for whatever reason, we're going to ask you, where is your pharmacy? Is it 24-hour open? Yes or no? What do you need? And ideally, we have already called in prescriptions ahead of time. So you have insulin, you have test strips, maybe some Dexcom if you're using that, or Libres. Sometimes we throw in something for nausea in there, depending on what your needs are. But having all of that up front, it's like half of the way of dealing with any problems that you will have.
I always say it's like Murphy's Law. If you prepare for it, it will never, ever happen. If you don't prepare for it, it absolutely will happen.
Right.
Yeah. And I think with that, another good question to ask, or another two good questions to ask, I'll start off easy. Danny, you were talking about having supplies on hand at all times. What do you think is a good amount to have on hand just in case?
So, it's sort of like use your next vacation to determine, worst case scenario. I'm a hoarder by nature. I'm an overpacker by nature. And so I always say, bring about a week's extra worth of what you need, but it depends. How far away are you going to school? We've worked with kids that have gone internationally before and, had traveled abroad for school, and they do need to bring quite a lot more than if you're going, within driving distance. It really just depends on your storage. Also, a lot of dorm rooms are, the size of your home closet. And so it just depends what kind of schedule you can get on with your shipments. Your refrigerator is not going to be full size either. And so it may be that your pharmacy needs to mail it to your dorm room, on a certain maybe monthly basis, or there needs to be some assistance from home. But, storage is an issue, and it's really just dependent on how far away you are, but I do like to have plenty of supplies.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Whenever, like I said, although I don't have type 1 diabetes, I like to have a lot more. My family has a saying, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So
The space is an issue, absolutely. And so oftentimes, you might need to get a little bit creative in terms of the first of every month, someone from home, sends a box of cartridges and infusion sets, or you can bring everything you need and refresh at Thanksgiving break. It just really depends, I think. But you do want more than you think you need.
And one thing that I want to caution you, because a lot of people do it, is they use their emergency supply to cover when they have gaps, and that happens all the time. I mean, it's like your emergency money, you spend it in a party, and then when you really have the emergency, there's no party and there's no emergency money. So that happens all the time with insulin. I mean, they just say, oh yeah, I'm going next week for Thanksgiving, I'm just going to use this thing but I have, and then they come back from Thanksgiving and then something horrible happens. And now what happened with the emergency supply? Oh my God, I just used it before because I was running short. So that's where the pharmacy calling prescription, calling little things will help you. The other thing is, assume always that any shipment is at least 5 days away, not 3, because it never fails. I mean, you try to get UPS, FedEx to send you anything. It's 3 days is not really like something that you can rely on. So count at 5 days minimum before anybody can rescue you from what you need. And it doesn't sound horrible, because 5 days, I mean, when 1 week is not a lot of supplies. Usually it's a little bag that you can carry and use it as your travel kit, but make sure that it's fresh.
And one thing I do notice is, when people are at school versus home, they forget what they have at home, they forget what they have at school. So maybe just keep a running log of supplies on your notes in your phone, something that's really easily accessible. And that way you can double check from, family at home versus, say you've got your last box of, things for your pump at school, you can double check if someone needs to order, if you need to order supplies. So just keep that kind of information on notes. I think that's really helpful. Or take pictures of the supplies before you leave, just anything on your phone that you can kind of keep track of.
And what you don't want is mom or dad being that person to track down. So we need to have you kind of have an idea, because I don't know how many times, Dana, we asked the same thing. Well, where do you get your Dexcom? Well, I don't know. It just shows up in the morning with FedEx, and say, well, but from whom? Well, I don't know. And how many refills you have? Well, I don't know. So all of those little things are if you're going to need something in college besides diabetes stuff, is money. So treat it the same way that you know how much money you have, which is usually very little. That's the same way that you have to treat supplies, always running short. So, but a mom and dad should not be monitoring all of this. And that is I think the homework for mom and dad. Sure. Let this go and have them be able to at least have an idea where things are coming from.
Sure. Yeah.
For sure. And I feel you, and I hear you loud and clear on the whole money thing. I was always running low on funds. So that's my one piece of advice, is choose how to spend your money wisely. That's all I got to bring to the table for the rest of this. But no, I'm just kidding. But so another special scenario that I kind of want to hit on is, what if I'm in the middle of class, right? And I have a diabetes emergency and I have to leave class, or what if I have to miss a test because I'm having a diabetes emergency, or even worse, what if I miss an assignment and it's like 50% of my grade? What do you think the best practices to do or how to handle that would be?
So I'll start with this. Most offices of the offices of disabilities or special services, or whatever the office is that your university calls itself, and they are catering to students who have special needs, they will ask you first to contact your professors. And it's typically a one-on-one conversation with each professor for those special accommodations. And it's nice to have those conversations with your professors so that ahead of time, if there is an issue with an exam, with a paper you just couldn't finish because your blood sugar was running 300 from a problem with your infusion set, the professor is aware and you've already had that conversation. And I think as much planning as we've talked about in terms of preparation for the first day of moving into your dorm, same thing goes with your professors, the same way that your high school teachers had that information. And I think, if you're comfortable sharing that information, then it's definitely a worthwhile thing to have a simple email to your professor, letting them know you have certain needs during an exam, during maybe a long lab where you're standing on your feet for hours and hours, and get that out of the way so you don't have to worry about it in the future.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, I have the experience of my kids one of them went to a large school, and sometimes the professor can care less about 600 people in the class. And the only people who may know you by name or at least by face is your TA or whatever they call them now. But go and kind of introduce yourself to them, and they say, hey, I have type 1 diabetes, and I have to have this special needs, and I already cleared it through the Office of Special Accommodations. But in case I'm running high or low and I have to miss something, can I email you? Can I do something? And usually at that level, when the class is too big, the professor is not reachable. So I highly recommend you to have something like closer to your level in terms of that. And TAs tend to be the person that they do most of the work for, like labs and things like that.
Absolutely. I know at Texas A&M we had the Office of Disabilities and other things like that. And I know whenever I first got diagnosed with ADHD, I had to go and get a actual form filled out and verified, and I would take that form and I would make copies of it and I would give it to my professors. So that's my soapbox that I'm going to step on for the day. If any of y'all are going to A&M, I know they do that. But another hard topic that I kind of want to hit on that I think it's very, very important, it can kind of be hard to talk about, but very, very necessary to talk about, is drinking, and then potentially drinking and driving, right? Never a good thing. How would that affect, drinking and diabetes? How do those go hand in hand? And what do you think we should do if we are ever in the event that we are drinking and we need a ride, or in the event that we have no ride? What are y'all's best practices?
Dana, I'll give you the
well, drinking and driving, type 1 diabetes or not, it's just not safe to do. It has nothing to do with diabetes. So Uber and Lyft are really everywhere, I think. And, especially college campuses are really good with free rides and shuttles and buses. So driving, diabetes or not ever anything to risk injuring yourself. And then in terms of drinking, you definitely want to make sure that you understand that having a low blood sugar and this again is something that we would talk about long before college starts. This is definitely something that we talk about, both of us, in our practice quite regularly, helping to understand what responsible drinking looks like when you have type 1 diabetes, making sure that you understand that being drunk can oftentimes have the same symptoms as low blood sugars, and you can often confuse, how you feel if you are too intoxicated. Making sure that you've got identification is always a good idea. And then preparing, making sure you have carbohydrates with you at all times when you're drinking. Having alcohol can cause low blood sugars because your liver is busy metabolizing alcohol and it's not busy doing other things that it does most of the time. And so we often encourage kind of a carb meal with some high fat to kind of keep you steady through the night if you're preparing to go drinking through the night. And then being responsible, making sure that you've got people with you and not taking any risky behaviors so that you stay safe.
And for the parents, I mean, I'm going to speak like a parent, not like a physician for a second. So you probably should know by the time your kid is going whether they're going to be a kid that is going to drink, yes or no. And so please save me the awkward moment when they ask me to tell the patient, can you tell such and such, please, not to drink in college? And I'm like, really? You're asking me to have that conversation? This is not a physician to patient conversation. This is a parent to student conversation. Now, I can come in with that beautiful answer that Dana can tell you about all of the consequences. But I can tell you that, I mean, there's a good portion of the kids who have drank during junior and senior year. And so both the kid and the parent has to own that information. So don't expect that I'm just going to read it out of my mind-blowing perception that I'm going to pull that out of the. So if they like to drink, which I have no problem with it, then we'll teach you how to do it responsibly. If this is someone who drink is not an issue, then it's fine. But remind yourselves that a lot of people take up drinking in college also as an extracurricular activity. So again, I am not the one going to be giving morals recommendations about that. I can give medical recommendations. So I think that these conversations are best suited for the family room. Mm-hmm. And I hate to bring this topic also, but sex and protected sex and being smart, especially in my case, for the girls in big towns, like for example, Austin, and big towns were maybe prone to get into the wrong place at the wrong time with a little bit of alcohol. So these conversations need to start, and this has nothing to do with type 1 diabetes. And these conversations, I'm sure, Cameron, you had it with your parents, and that they're not supposed to be brought at the time of conversation with us, but we can provide guidance if need be.
Right. And I think that goes back to the family roles that we talked about at the very beginning when we started, in terms of having that checklist of, is my child ready for college? It's not just all about type 1 diabetes. There's so many other things that go into it in terms of, responsibility for study skills. I mean, that has nothing to do with diabetes, but we want to make sure that we kind of go through the checklist, and diabetes is just part of that.
Yeah. And some of these conversations, I mean, you have to remember also, we may meet you when you're already 18. So you can say, I mean, rightfully so, I don't want to answer in front of my dad or my mom, and can I talk to Dana separately? And that's something that I want you to feel comfortable to, and talk about that, because you're no longer a kid, you are an adult, and you have the right. And that sometimes is a little tricky. You find, Dana, that sometimes it's tricky when the parents are so used for years and years and years to be able to answer the question, ask the question, rephrase the question, and all of a sudden, these are adults too. So,
right. And since I do a lot of telehealth, you do also, I do have a lot of one-on-one conversations with kids that are already at school and in their dorm room by themselves. And so we do have the ability to have some private conversations, which I think sometimes is helpful.
Yeah, and sometimes also ask to meet with the person that you feel the most comfortable with. For example, that happens to me with a lot of my female students. I tell them, listen, you don't have to give me any details that you don't feel comfortable with. That's why we always have more than one people on the team that may connect to you better. Doesn't necessarily have to be a gender thing.
Right.
It could be just a relationship, how you look, how closer age you may look like. If my British accent bothering you, so we give you Dana with a different accent. And so, I mean, it sounds funny, but it is true. I mean, we'll find someone in the team that you can relate to.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with literally everything y'all just said. My mom sat me down right before I went to college. She said, look, if you're going to engage in some of these activities, do it responsibly. Don't drink and drive, which most college campuses, like Dana said, have rideshare programs that are free for students. As long as you are going home and going home safely, they'd rather you be safe than not safe at all. And for sure, I would completely agree. The whole having conversation with your parents is absolutely necessary. But my doctor ended up being my best friend before I left college, because I would go to her for everything that I maybe like not felt comfortable talking to my mom with. And that's just because they're there to help. So literally everything y'all just said, perfectly said. Love it. And so, with the whole parent conversation thing and how to, if you're a parent, how to ask or properly ask your child, what's your blood sugar at? Or maybe if it's your kid, or if you are the kid, how often should I tell my parents? Let's say I'm a parent, right? And I want my son to text me every so often and just say, hey, this is my blood sugar. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you think best practices are to either maybe loosen up on your kid, give them the reins a little bit after that trust is established? Or what do y'all think some advice for parents and the kids are?
You want to start this first? Or you want me to?
No, let me give you an introduction, okay? Because I think it's important. So the 5 years ago, we would have answered this is that you will be checking the blood sugars at least 3 to 5 days, at 3 to 5 times a day, at least in the morning. And then it's good if you text me what the numbers look like. Yeah. Those days are gone. So technology has really helped us, but it could be also a problem in itself. So technology has to be owned by the person. The data has to be owned by the person who's going to use use it to the most advantage. And sometimes too much information is just too much information. So one of the things that I'm still struggling, and that's why I want to preface Dana's response, because I'm still struggling at this point, to what is the correct recommendation when we have continuous glucose monitors now that can give you constant information and you can share it with many people. In my perspective, you have to establish already that relationship with what you're going to share with and what are you going to share way before you go to college.
Right.
So imagine like high school senior year is a good time for you to test these boundaries. Am I going to allow my mom or my dad or my sister or whoever to follow me in my CGM? Yes or no? Or is going to be as needed basis? Because if this happens on day one that they move into the dorm, it's a disaster.
Right.
Disaster for the mom and disaster for the patient. So would you agree, Dana, that?
Absolutely. And I do think, again, this goes down to, or this comes back to high school as a warm up, right? And, you know, you don't have to share all of your data all the time. Say that just what the family decides, and you go into the family room and we start having these hard conversations. Doesn't have to all be in one night, but we start introducing these hard conversations. And what is the line that mom and dad, sister, brother, grandma and grandpa does not want to cross? Is that line? I just really need to know if your blood sugar is under 60. That to me is my line. So then we start having these negotiations in the same way that we have negotiations about money, about drinking, about, classes and registration. And so, what is everybody comfortable with, and starting with that, and then practice it when you're at home. We're going to have fluctuations, especially in college. And maybe this is the time to say it. College, unfortunately, is not the time to really hone in on perfect blood sugars. Freshman year is stressful in and of itself, with or without type 1 diabetes, with or without going away from home. And so there is going to be an expectation that we do have a little bit more variability. And if having that blood sugar being tracked is adding to stress on either side, maybe we try to find something else. Maybe we text when we get home at night and not have the blood sugars being read all the time. Maybe we just get low alerts. I do know of a lot of situations where this has not been kind of squared away with family members ahead of time, and then the fire department is called, or the RA is called, because they do a lot of checks with security at universities, and you have that ability as a parent to have that. And so, it's nice to talk about these things way ahead of time and feel comfortable with it, so everybody in the family feels comfortable, and we don't use the first week of college as kind of that time to explore.
Yeah, and just make a protocol to if you have a blood sugar of 60 and I text you and you don't respond, and I call you and you don't call me back, I am calling somebody.
Right. Or I'm calling the roommate, or I'm calling the RA,
Yeah, and don't give me an emoji because I called your roommate and you were fine just talking to your boyfriend on the other line. Right. So kind of thing like this. And the other thing I want to emphasize, because it happens all the time, and that's something that I learned with my daughter. Students, especially in the first year, happens in high school a lot, but they're so prone to have their phone disconnected for A, B, or C reason. There's something about not charging the phone that is like a recipe in freshman year. And so sometimes the blood sugar is 50, 60, and there's a disconnect here and there, and then you try to text someone and then there's no answer. And of course the phone is not answering because it's out of charge. I mean, I don't know how many times that happens, but it's gotta be something. So simple things as you're gonna charge the phone every night, because when you put it, you're gonna put it next to your stand, and then you're gonna have it charged the rest of the day. And then when you come back, things simple like that. And you practice when you're in high school, because in high school, you can see whether this strategy is about calling me yes or no, or answering me the text or no. The funny thing is that if anybody needs money, boy, that phone works and text works, and it's immediate that you can get a hold of them. But for any other reason,
right,
it's not urgent.
Right. And I mean, there are people who sleep through alarms, their Dexcom's going off, and they do happen to have, you know, they're heavy sleepers. They have, you know, noise canceling headphones because the roommate snores. So there are all sorts of scenarios that come up, even things that we can't think of. And so really having that plan, I think, just helps everybody's anxiety level tremendously.
Yeah, I was definitely one of those kids that forgot to charge my phone sometimes. And my mom, I'm not kidding, sent me a care package, and in the care package was like a portable charger, because she said, you're not missing my phone calls and you're definitely not missing your alarms anymore. So get a
So
mobile
you believe
charger.
me, this whole phone thing it's a real thing.
I promise you will fall asleep and forget to charge your phone more times than one, because I would stay up until like 1 o'clock studying, which is never a good thing. And then I would miss class because I wouldn't charge my phone. It'd be dead. And then my mom had my location and I wouldn't be in class, and it was a disaster. And so buy a mobile charger. I promise it'll save your life.
So one thing that I want to throw up also there into the mix is that don't assume that you're going to have a beautiful roommate. I mean, my experience is that it's actually a draw of the luck, and it's a 50-50 chance that you're going to run up into someone who either doesn't care, snores, has a horrible habit. And so just plan for that too.
Absolutely.
Because you may not have someone that really helps you.
Right.
Luckily, my roommate, my mom would call her so many times if I wasn't in class. She eventually started setting an alarm for both of us. So my roommate came in clutch.
Right.
Awesome. So I want to backtrack a little bit. We hit on all the topics that we definitely needed to cover. So these are just a few random questions that were submitted. So as far as nighttime highs and lows, how do you wake up, or how would I wake up if I were having a nighttime low? I'm new to this. So is there like an alarm that goes off? Or is it kind of just like your body wakes you up? And then if there is a high or a low, how do you prepare for that? Do you keep something by your bed? What are the best practices for that as well?
Well, I'll start with that. I mean, some people naturally wake up. Some people naturally wake up from the alarms if you're wearing a continuous glucose monitor. Some people sleep right through it. And those people are usually the ones that parents get a little bit nervous about. But typically, I would say, you know, when you're preparing to go to college, you want to have a storage of treatment for low blood sugars next to your bed. And so the same things that you use at night currently at home that also should be next to your bed to treat low blood sugars are going to go with you to college. And like I had mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that your roommate doesn't eat them, right? If you're using Smarties or Skittles or something that looks like candy outside of glucose tablets, we want to make sure that your roommate is aware that that's for medical treatment. Glucose tablets are always nice to have because I've never known anybody to overeat those just because they, you know, were hungry at night. And so again, practicing before you go to college and not having parents wake you up if your blood sugar is 300, but relying on those alarms. I know it's really, really hard to do as a parent, but you want to make sure that we set some good habits for when your blood sugar rises on your own and you don't have someone down the hallway. That can be tricky.
Yeah, and I think I want to emphasize that the priority is always to prevent the lows. I mean, you can get in trouble from the lows far quicker than you can get trouble from the highs. Now, on the highs, it also depends whether you're on injections or you're on a pump. In the pump, we spend a lot of time, hopefully before you go to college, to tell you what are the signs that something is wrong. I mean, if you eat 5 slices of pizza and then chuck it down with something good like a brownie, then at 350 is going to be expected, and you're going to feel full, but you know what happened, and you probably just need to kind of work through that. But anytime you have nausea, vomiting, you feel fainted, you feel dehydrated, and then you have a blood sugar over 400, assume that the insulin is not getting into your body. Like, make that assumption. So you need to understand how to switch from getting the insulin the usual way, which could be injections or could be pump, and getting more into like acute treatment of a high blood sugar. So we always will cover that, make sure that you have syringes if you're on a pump, and so you can use fresh insulin and then give you some boluses until the blood sugar starts to respond. I cannot tell you how many times, and I want Dana can kind of expand a little bit, how many times my patients sit on a room trying to treat a blood sugar because they assume that the pump is not responding, but they don't get out of the pump's motion and then do it somewhere else. Will you agree, Dana?
Well, I would agree. And I think it goes back also to having extra supplies. People are so concerned they're going to run out of those 10 infusion sets that they brought for the semester. So they're concerned about switching. I don't ever want people to feel like they're trying to conserve infusion sets if you're on a pump, or conserve pen needles if you're taking shots. The other thing is that, most freshmen, and I don't think I know anybody who's gone freshman year without getting sick at some point. And so we definitely want to go over sick day management and talk about when we need to seek help, when it's time to say, okay, this has gone above and beyond what I can do on my own. I do need to go seek either at the ER, urgent care, or the university clinic. But to have that sick day understanding that you do need more insulin when you're sick, whether it's the flu or something else that you get at college, it's not maybe going to be COVID, but you are going to get sick just living with so many people. And so I think just understanding sick day management is so important, on top of knowing when to change out pump supplies, things like that.
And Dana and I and others, we have prepared like a little cheat sheet, so to speak. And that's something I can send to you, Cameron, and we can make it available for them on demand. Obviously, I don't take medical responsibility of the recommendations, but they are really well written in the sense that this is what you will find from any physician or practice, and this is what you should expect from whoever you see in preparation to go to college. But so you can see it, like have a face-to-face. I'll send it to Cameron, and then you can come up with an idea. Maybe people can email you and say, hey, can I look at Dr. Mora's template? And again, take it as just an idea. This is not necessarily something that it applies to you, but those are the elements that Dana, myself, and others, we have put together on how to treat sick day management, and have it ready, and be sit down with your doctors, and sit down with your parents, and then go over them, and everybody's on the same page. Okay, so what we're going to do for what?
And on that, on that point, with sick day management, making sure that ketone strips is not something that you've never heard of before, right? Having the tools in your sick day box that you bring to college, you have your detergent and you have your medication, but making sure that you're prepared for sick day. I always suggest having that for people who aren't even in college, for anyone who has type 1 diabetes, because when you're sick, you don't want to go out and go look for things. So ketone strips, having them readily available in your dorm room. And then also, this is a good time to mention, if you don't have a current prescription for a glucagon, whether it's one of the new Gvox or Baqsimi, making sure that your doctor has that, so that and maybe talk to your roommate about that in case you do have a low and you're not responsive, that they're aware. Maybe that's the one thing that you tell your roommate, like, look, I'm not giving you a lot of responsibility for my diabetes, but let me tell the RA and let me tell my roommate that I have an emergency supply if my blood sugar is really dangerously low.
And somehow everything happens after Friday at 9 p.m. and it's Labor Day on Monday. So consider that a given. There is no way to get you anything until next Tuesday or Wednesday at best. So no pharmacy is open.
Yeah.
Next pharmacy is 25 miles, and I don't have a car, or God forbid, I don't have a car at all because I'm not able to drive when I'm a freshman. So all those things you have to kind of plan for it. And so this has to be something that you can actually, if you need it, and it's right there. I mean, you might need some water, or you may need some Gatorade or G2 or something, which is going to be, we'll be talking about that in the sick management list. But then the specific stuff that you're not going to find easily has to be at your fingertips.
Just put it in a container.
Yeah.
Right. So the things that I'm hearing, if you're taking notes, make sure you put asterisks, highlight, whatever, have extra supplies on hand, and make sure you assume 5 days ahead. Isn't that what you said, Dr. Mora?
Yes.
5 days,
Yes.
not 3. All right.
Not three, no.
Business days.
Yes.
5 business days.
Yes, you're gonna get sick on Friday. You're gonna need
Right.
something on Friday, and FedEx at best is gonna get to you Tuesday or Wednesday.
Right.
That's the plan.
Yeah, make sure you put some asterisks or highlight or underline, bold, whatever you got to do on those, because that's what I'm hearing is an ongoing trend.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're nearing the end. So these last 2 questions that I have for y'all are kind of a little bit more fun questions. So I know whenever I was in college, my freshman diet was nothing but ramen or ramen noodles, however you want to say it. What do you think? Because I know kitchen might be limited if you're staying in a dorm your first year. What would be some good meals that are quick and easy, just off the top of your head, that I can, eat that are both healthy and still good for type 1 diabetes management?
This is Dana.
I know, this is me. So I am a massive fan of Amazon Fresh and getting subscriptions on a monthly basis or however much you need, just getting some sort of easy, high protein, high fiber bar that you like, that you'll eat, you'll stick in your bag, your backpack, and just have kind of a constant flow delivered straight to your dorm room. Because again, most freshmen don't have access to a car, and you really have such little time between studying and everything else that you're doing in college to go grocery shopping. So if it's okay with the family and it works out that there's Amazon Prime just gets sent to your, or Fresh gets sent to your door, there's Walmart will deliver straight to your dorm room. And getting some low carb snacks is always something that I would recommend, just so that you don't have to worry. Carbs are really easily accessible on college campuses. If you have a small fridge, putting some, Greek yogurt, beef jerky, turkey jerky. They have all sorts of kind of elevated organic jerky these days, but really finding something that's packaged pretty easily and conveniently that you can keep. Cheese stick, of course, is going to be something you want to buy and just have in your refrigerator. But again, it comes with that conversation with your roommate. This is mine. And I'm happy for us to get 2 separate refrigerators if that's what it comes to, and making sure that, the dining hall, usually, I think dining hall food has come a long way, don't you? I mean, it's really elevated. And so again, I would really encourage people to meet with the dietitian that's on staff at the university. I really think they can help you find things that you'll enjoy eating that kind of match your approach to your diabetes management and help with carb counts too.
And I also want to throw in a couple of things. Maybe Cameron, we can bring this up on Thursday when we talk. We kind of pick up the conversation. Everybody gains weight of almost always, and somehow it's a big deal. And part of it is access to certain food, sure, but also is the lack of exercise. I mean, I think that you have to plan into get some kind of a lifestyle, also exercise component into this. So bring it up. And then most of the colleges has beautiful gyms and classes are free, and then you can do a lot of things. So make it a point that you're going to try to exercise a couple times, 3 times a week, do something, walk. I mean, there's many cities that are just beautiful for that.
And again, I would say, before college is the time to start to incorporate a healthy lifestyle. Make sure you feel comfortable exercising, that you're not going to have problems with low blood sugars, that you feel comfortable with that. It should definitely be part of that kind of checklist that we've talked about.
And a quick thing, we all need to make peace also with the video gaming overnight. I mean, and that has to be very, very well discussed, because it's bad usually at high school, but when you go and live on your own, you can video game the whole night if you want to. And then most of the classes don't even care if you show up or not. So have that kind of a healthy lifestyle kind of already in your head from day one when you walk into the campus.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember I would go next door to my dorm mates right next door, and I'd stay up until, regretfully, 2 a.m. just watching them play video games.
Absolutely.
Worse. And I should have been studying for an exam. But I definitely learned my lesson, because the next day would be when my phone would die and I wouldn't wake up. So yeah, but I think, Dana, you kind of hit on my last question, and it's kind of a more fun one. You said, cheese sticks, Greek yogurt, all that fun stuff. Let's say I woke up late to class and I needed something on the go, or I was just about to fall asleep, already brushed my teeth, and I kind of needed just a nighttime snack just to make sure my blood sugars, leveled out and ready to go while I'm sleeping or going to class. Off the top of your head, both of y'all just say kind of your favorite on the go and nighttime snacks.
Wow, that's so hard. I don't know. I would usually try to find exactly what people like, but that's why I would say use the internet, get things delivered straight to the dorm room, make sure that, you have something that is your go-to, whether it's a bar, whether it's something, prepared in soup cans, stay forever. It really depends also on if you have a refrigerator, if you have a microwave. I mean, those two things, I would say, if you could have a refrigerator and a microwave, kind of opens you up to a whole bunch. But, a lot of dorm rooms don't have space for all of that. And so it just kind of depends. And we have to stick with packaged foods that will sit for a long amount of time. And so, but you can really do a lot, and people can get really quite creative. But, I would definitely talk with a dietitian, talk with your health team, figure out, your likes and dislikes, things that are safe foods you feel comfortable with, and then seeing if you can work that into either having it at your dorm room or making sure you have access to that at the dining hall.
And try them before you order them, because how many times you look at the bar and you say, that's yummy. And then you order a 6-month supply of that and you say, bleh.
Yeah, I would get the variety pack for sure.
Yes, so try that before you actually get there.
Yeah.
And see if the coconut bar from Costa Rica actually tastes good. And if you like it, then that's your go-to fast thing. But don't try to develop the taste there. You need to already have tasted it. It's like you have to have already proven things that you like before you order them.
Yeah, and peanut butter and jelly is always my go-to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my go-to whenever my ramen or ramen, I still don't know how to say it, and that was my go-to also. Whenever I would run out of my supply, peanut butter and jelly was my next thing. But it looks like we're about to run out of time. Are there any last-minute questions? I didn't see any in the chat, but just in case someone had one that they wanted to ask last minute. All right. Well, if you have any last minute questions, feel free to shoot them to Tanya. I know y'all all have her email. And I will also, if it's okay with you, Dr. Mora and Dana, for me to send out your contact information to all these people along with that cheat sheet, I will definitely do that. But I wanted to thank you both so much for coming to speak. I know I left with a lot better knowledge about type 1 diabetes and just college in general. I wish I could go back and do it all over again. But I wanted to thank y'all so much for coming, sharing some advice, answering some questions. But y'all are all good. So for the rest of y'all, I hope y'all join us on Thursday. We'll be addressing a little bit more mental health related questions. We'll have a great speaker speaking on Thursday evening, same time. But other than that, thank y'all all so much. This has been a pleasure. And I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's night.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate you being here.
Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you.
So Jean, yes, we're going to be, oh, she just left. Just kidding. Awesome. Well, I think that went well. That was
I think
awesome.
it went really well. You did a terrific job. You are
Thank you so much.
so skilled at that. You've been doing that your whole life and you have a very short life. So more than your whole life.
Awesome.
Good job.
Yeah. I
Good job.
appreciate all of your help and giving your little quick introduction there at the beginning. I know that was a little as if somebody already didn't know JDRF.
No,
Awesome.
that's okay.
But yeah, so I will email Pablo about the cheat sheet because I know Race was very interested in that. And I will
Yes.
just probably send it to everybody that registered for today. I'll probably send that probably tomorrow if I can get it from Pablo quick enough.
Okay.
As well as their like contact information. I'll shoot them an email tomorrow morning or later on this evening and double check all of that. But other than that, it was awesome.
Fabulous. It was so awesome. Please copy me on that email so I see what else going out. And that way, if somebody wasn't able to make it and they want the recording, I can still send them that as well.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so